Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Many people have been surprised with the headlines. It's futile for Zimbabweans in South Africa to return to hell and vote in rigged elections, said Chamisa in response to Julius Malema's call for Zimbabweans to go back to Zimbabwe and change. Good afternoon, Ben. What do you think of the headlines?
Thank you. Good day to everybody who is joining us. Uh, we have always said this on this platform, and I believe there are a few Zimbabweans out there that have also said the same thing. You can never win rigged elections. It is impossible. You can come up with strategies, devices, and all that. It will count for naught in a rigged election. I believe this was long overdue. I would say finally some sense has been spoken in a very long time by Chamisa. This is basically one of the most sensible things he said in years. It is impossible. It doesn't make any sense. Even if all Zimbabweans come back, it is impossible to win rigged elections. And I say, it's a little too late for 2023, but it's a welcome for 2028.
Well, I wish I could believe him. This is typical of our politicians in Zimbabwe. They tell you one thing today, tomorrow they'll tell you the exact opposite. In 2014, following the rigged elections of 2013, MDCT, led then at the time by Morgan Tsvangirai, came up with a party resolution that there will be no elections without first implementing the reforms. No reforms, no elections, they chanted. But just the following year, 2015, they had all changed their minds. They all decided they were going to participate in the flawed elections of 2018. And they did. And then the party leadership had switched hands. Chamisa was the leader of MDC Alliance that went into the 2018 elections. And he is the one who was telling people MDC Alliance has stringent measures to stop ZANU-PF rigging the elections. He has never admitted that was a lie. This is the problem with our politicians. They think they can lie and get away with it. It's just that because I think it's mainly because their supporters are not even paying attention. And so they can lie and get away with it. And that is what is happening here, in my view.
I agree with you. I do understand your skepticism in terms of, the future. Because, we've had Colton come out. Mr. Colton came out and he said, it didn't make any sense to see MDC, T and MDCN participating in rigged elections. It made sense for them to boycott, but they still went ahead. Tsvangirai also at one point said it is futile for us to continue in rigged elections. Tendai Biti is also on record saying that it is pointless. ZANU-PF rigs elections. And worse off, the people want elections. And it is impossible. But this has not stopped them. So I do understand, your point to say, the future, it may look as if they have come to their senses, but you may find out that come 2028, it will be all systems go, battling for these rigged elections again. So it's for me, I think, once you have said this, I would like to be optimistic to say, maybe you've come to your senses. Now we can start moving forward as a nation to start finding, a solution that is lasting towards uh, us finding free, fair, and credible elections. This year, all strategies have failed. It's pointless for us now to start saying to him, but you promised and all that. I think, our time is short to be start to be dealing with what he's got to say from the past and everything. Now we know that, it's failed. Let's move on. Another solution, another focus, something positive, and let's head on. You need to unmute yourself.
My apologies. Just to go back to the quotation from David Coulthard, which is showing on the bottom of the screens there. It should be understood here that David Coulthard, after the 2013 elections, realized that the process was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw. But he also explains why, in the end, they failed to withdraw. Because the MDCT and MDCN, neither of them could withdraw for fear that the other side would continue and win the seats, the gravy train seats. This has been at the heart of the problem here. It's not that they did not realize that it was futile participating in flawed elections. They realized that. But what they could not conquer is their greed. Here is Margaret Dongo explaining that very point too.
In parliament. This is why we have violence in this country, because there is no employment. The only employment which is there is in politics. There is no other outside employment. So for them, a very good example is, look at what happened to CCC, the Triple C party. Have a look. When they lost, when they said they were rigged, what I expected from them, I expected all parliamentarians to say, we are not going to go to participate in a rigged system. And we are not going to sit in a rigged parliament. Because the elections have been rigged. So all of us were not going to parliament. Imagine what could have happened. We could have gone into new elections. There's no way ZANU-PF was going to roll alone.
You think so?
Yes.
Do they care?
Caring or not caring, the public would have forced them, because the majority of the people would want representation in parliament.
But they went anyway?
But they went. They realized that, you heard them complain, I used my own money to be in parliament. But what about me who have voted for you? I used my own money. So the idea is to recover. Is it a business? where you want to recover your losses? Is it a business? Politics, is it a business where everyone else, when you get in parliament, you want to recover your losses? A good example is now parliamentarians have been elected. I don't know when we last saw our member of parliament in this area. And some of them, they tell you straight away that we are looking for money so that when it comes back to re-election, we want to feed our people. We want to buy our votes. They're very open.
In this particular case, if Chamisa, for instance, was to tell, in fact, Chamisa, after the 2023 elections, told his MPs and councillors that they should not take up their seats. And they told him, no, we are taking up our seats because we funded ourselves. So this headline from Chamisa does not mean anything at all. He knows that if he was to tell his supporters that they could not contest in the elections, they will walk away. They will rather participate as independent. That is the reality. So I think we need to be realistic. The politics in Zimbabwe is about money. And the politics, the caliber of politicians in both MDC and Triple C have been corrupt and incompetent. And that is the reality that Zimbabweans must deal with. If we are going to go into 2028 thinking that the penny has dropped, Chamisa has finally seen the light. He has finally seen the sheer futility of participating in flawed elections, only to give ZANU-PF legitimacy. Then we are forgetting the most important thing: greed and incompetence.
You know, in this group, or in this, on this platform, I have always said the easiest way to make money is by participating in these rigged elections. I've said this. I don't know when this was taken, but I'm saying it again. For example, the 2023 elections, if you're an MP, you would invest your 1,000 US dollars. The moment you win, you are guaranteed of 70,000. That is for the car. You are going to get another 40,000 plus for a house. You know, then the perks that come with it when you go to parliament, you bush allowance, fuel allowance, you know, hotels and all that. Life is good from that $1,000. This is why you saw when the SADC report came out to say it had nullified, you know, the whole election, it fell short. In the most logical thing was for the Triple C members of parliament to say, no, no, no. SADC has said this is a sham, and we are going to stand with SADC for what they have said. This would have pushed ZANU-PF right into the corner. They would have been backed into the corner. Hold on a minute. We don't have legitimacy for our president. Here now we have parliament that is almost but collapsing now. What do we do? Then we had ZANU-PF in the right spot, but greed from Triple C, not ZANU-PF, from Triple C, pushed us now into the corner. And now, within a few months, ZANU-PF shredded them to pieces. We know Triple C is but dead. MPs recalled. It's all dead in the water, just because of that greed. Now, unless we realize the futility of continuously participating in these rigged elections, just for those that are greedy, we will continue to be, you know, impoverished. we will continue to be dragged in the mud, continue to be used, for somebody else's gain. I'm glad, I believe a lot of people, they just follow Chamisa despite his shortcomings, despite some of his crazy decisions and lies. But at least he said it. And his people should be able to listen to say, hold on a minute. You knew this was going on. Such that the next time when he comes, he says, this time I've got plans. You quickly have to tell him, no, hold on a minute. The last time you said, the previous time you said, and this time you are saying, what has changed? You got to be able to ask for us to move forward. You got to be able to ask. You cannot just, blindly follow. Here we are. We've wasted all this time participating in rigged elections. We've said all this time, rigged elections, that doesn't matter anymore. Now he said it. He needs to stand by it. The moment he changes and wants us to continue to go into, there should be questions asked to say, when you said this, why now have you changed for us to what has changed in the political environment for you now to say let's go for elections? We have to change the political environment first. Then all what he wants to do, Chamisa, is up to him and his people. But as for now, it's impossible. Now at least he said it himself. It is impossible for us to win rigged elections. Imagine in South Africa, there is 3 million Zimbabwe. Surely that would have gotten him over the line had it not been that the election is rigged. So even if you add 3 million, he is actually telling you it will not work.
Well, I think the argument that should be made abundantly clear here is that Chamisa is a liar. And unfortunately, most of his supporters, either out of desperation or ignorance or both, have yet to accept that reality. And until they do, I think we are talking here of Chamisa tomorrow coming up with another lie, and they will believe him. They will participate in a flawed election. And ZANU-PF will rig and get away with it. Here is one interview where he blatantly lied, and unfortunately, he was being interviewed on BBC. And of course, the interviewer did not let him get away with it.
Ende patakasangana na Trump akatibvunza naye akomana mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
Serious questions were raised about your behaviour in Washington, D.C. You did see some senior people on Capitol Hill, some Congress people, but you also claimed that you'd seen Donald Trump. You claimed you had a conversation with him in which you said he asked you how much you needed to move the country forward. You told him $15 billion, and he said to you that he would provide the money if you won the election. That was not true, was it?
Sangana na Trump akatibvunza naye akomana mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
It was not true that you'd seen Donald Trump and that Donald Trump indicated to you that he would provide, if you won the election, $15 billion.
All those statements were said by other people, not what I said.
Kasangana na Trump akatibvunza naye akomana mari yamuri kuda kuti nyika ifambe imari.
Well, no, because there is a video which shows you at a rally in January back home in Zimbabwe saying that Donald Trump had pretty much promised you $15 billion. To be clear, because some people in Zimbabwe are still confused, you're now telling me you did not meet Donald Trump.
We did not.
Well, that is the reality. We in Zimbabwe have yet to learn that when somebody in public office is proven to be corrupt, incompetent, and a liar, they should resign. And particularly when those lies have got such dire consequences for the nation, there can be no doubt that by telling people, I plugged all the vote rigging loopholes, the people of Zimbabwe, in their millions, believed him and they participated in last year's elections only to give ZANU-PF legitimacy and perpetuate the dictatorship. What could be more damaging than that? If he was truly genuine, that he has finally seen the light, that it is futile to keep participating in rigged elections, then he should resign. In fact, the people of Zimbabwe should see to it that he resigns. He and his fellow Triple C members should bow down and walk into the sunset. The problem we have in Zimbabwe is we have got an incredibly naive and gullible electorate. And that's why politicians, not only in the opposition, but in the ruling parties, ZANU-PF, are getting away with murder, literally. 44 years of rigged elections. If we are going to move out of this hole, we really need to put our thinking cap on and stop being so gullible, so naive, that we let somebody lie, con us into participating in flawed elections again and again and again. And then some morning he wakes up and says, well, this was futile, the elections were rigged. And we let him get away with it. I think we need to be a lot more smarter than that. That is my message to the people of Zimbabwe today.
I understand, your frustration. I mean, MDC, before it changed all these names that followed. MDC, its primary purpose, as its name said, was a movement for democratic change. It was supposed to change the political environment for the better in Zimbabwe. And I must say, 24 years in, they have done very, very badly. They've performed very, very badly because there's no change that they have actually brought about. There's no change that has actually come to fulfillment in any of the of the political, be it political, economic environment. Everything is just the same way it was, or even worse now. But what I would want to deal with is that at least here he comes. He has said it. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he is sincere, that he's not going to drag the nation in another lie. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's spoken the truth this time. It is futile for us to continue participating in rigged elections. What then forward? The solution has always been there. The solution, we have said it in this group. The solution has been said by SADC. The solution has also been said by all observer missions. AU, EU, they have put in recommendations. And this is the time. Now we don't have any other noises outside that are saying, let's go with this election, let's try this, let's try that. Now we are on, believe we are on one voice, one position. Where do we move to next? So now the solution was given to us. Let us reform. Dr. Mumba said, this is the time for us to be fighting for reforms. And we should be fighting even harder than ever. I believe if we do that, and if we call for reforms, ZANU-PF would have to listen. They will be forced to listen because they need, people to participate in elections. They need an opposition to participate in elections. They will be forced to look into this here situation of the reforms and the recommendations. This is where our fight should be now. This is our next best step forward. Not all this nonsense. Chamisa is the best, what. This is the best step forward. The reforms, the recommendations. Thank you.
Well, my last remark on this one here before we close the day is that people must have the courage to accept when somebody has failed. I think the main problem we tend to have in our part of the world is the lack of confidence that we are capable of defining what we want and how to get it. If somebody has failed to implement even one token reform in 25 years, including 5 years in the GNU, I don't think there's anything more that could exemplify that you've got somebody who is corrupt and incompetent. And accepting that reality and looking for competent individuals who take the country forward is absolutely necessary. The main problem we tend to have in our part of the world is to recycle the same data over and over again because we lack the confidence of thinking that there could be anybody else beyond that. We are stuck with ZANU-PF or CCC. No, we are not. These two parties, the leaders in these two parties, they have already proven beyond all reasonable doubt that they are corrupt, incompetent, and in the case of ZANU-PF, murderous thugs. To keep recycling them is the most sickening thing that people could do. It only goes to show that we lack imagination. We lack the confidence to say, no, you guys have failed. Let's try something else. That, to me, is the message that we should get from 44 years of rigged elections by ZANU-PF, 24 years of not even one token reform implemented by CCC, MDC, and worse still, they are participating in flawed elections out of greed. Thank you very much. I don't know, Ben, whether you'd want to give in your closing remark there too.
In closing, I would say, finally, it's been said what we have been saying. We are not going to brag about who was right and who was wrong. No. This is a time where Zimbabweans should now move forward. We leave this whole participation, behind. I think for those 2 million plus and those that were lobbying for this participation, I've finally heard from the horse's mouth to say, it is futile. In Shona, they're saying that's bad. It's impossible. Right? Now we need to look for a best step forward, not through an individual, but collectively. What does Zimbabwe need? Zimbabwe needs to implement democratic reforms, or rather, just take the SADC report as it is and table those recommendations as is. I think that is the best step forward that we can ever do. Then whoever decides to vote back for Chamisa, vote for ZANU-PF, vote for whoever they wish for, that is their own right. I mean, these are the rights that we are supposed to be having, and these are the rights that we need. But they can only be fulfilled once we have, you know, reforms in place that will ensure that everybody's vote means something. I think, you know, we are now at the best place in 44 years. This admission has opened up 2+ million plus a lot of people, you know, across the diaspora that were actually thinking this was actually possible. It is not. Let's move forward.
Thank you very much for those of you who were able to join us. Have a good day.